Okay, folks, we are back for the second half of our show. And as promised, we have a friend of the show, Darren Marble from CrowdFundX, here with us. And Darren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Sunny California skies, no complaints over here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you, Darren, you got to be one of the busiest people right now working in this whole Reg.A crowdfunding industry. Every time I go online, I see an article for your work or things that are happening with CrowdFundX. How do you find the time to do all this stuff? It's great.
You know, I'm obsessive compulsive, and I've found a way over years to drive that into being a productive citizen, and that's a positive change. You know, I used to be a big drinker, and I kind of cleaned up my act. I stopped drinking, and I said, well, you know, I know I'm a little bit obsessive, and I've got this addictive personality, so why don't I be obsessive about getting stuff done and executing on my business? And so that's where it's at.
Yeah, and as we mentioned in the first half of the show, you did an article the other day, or actually a webinar, which was amazing. It was all you need to know about the security token offerings. I found it to be a real big eye-opener. It was great. It was really, really great. And I was hoping that maybe we could talk about some of the things that you went over on that webinar here today. Specifically, maybe we could just start off with what is an STO to begin with, a security token offering, and maybe how does it differ from an ICO, initial coin offering?
Absolutely. It's a great question. So look, you know, $6 billion was raised globally last year for so-called initial coin offerings, or ICOs. And it's an innovative way for companies to raise capital whereby they issue a token, they sell this token that may have some supposed utility in a network or ecosystem, and then these tokens become quickly traded on decentralized exchanges around the world, providing instant liquidity. The problem, as SEC Chair Jake Clayton pointed out, is that all of these token offerings were really, in effect, securities offerings. And so wittingly or unwittingly, a number of companies were selling unregistered securities last year. Now, the good news is there are a number of guided pathways available for blockchain companies or issuers in general to run regulated or compliant offerings. And we call these security token offerings, or as you mentioned, STOs. And so maybe we take a step back and say, well, what the heck is a security token? So a security token is a digital regulated asset. You can think of a security token as a form of programmable ownership. So it's programmable ownership. So imagine, you know, I've got a company and I've got 20 investors in my company, which I do. And I take my entire cap table, some equity, some debt, and now imagine I can tokenize my cap table. I can program my cap table into a piece of software that represents the economic interests that those investors signed up for and invested in years ago. And in addition to programming my cap table into these tokens, I can program things like a share buyback or dividend payments if certain conditions or milestones are met, voting rights. So the idea is that these security tokens represent a form of programmable ownership, and they're regulated, and they have to comply with federal securities laws, and will one day trade on secondary security token exchanges. So there's a mechanism here for issuers to be able to create security tokens, sell these tokens to investors both domestically, internationally, inclusive of retail and institutional, and then provide liquidity, near-term liquidity, for the purchasers of those tokens.
Well, the liquidity option is great, because I think a lot of problems that people are having right now with a lot of these Reg.A deals is they're concerned about their liquidity on that, and if that solves that problem, that's a really big step.
And also,
Absolutely.
Darren, you know, guys, as you all know out there, you're listening to the Reg.A Money Show with Ron Costa, Miguel Dotres, and of course we have the friend of the show, Darren Marble from CrowdFundX. And today, as you guys know, we're talking about STOs and initial coin offerings. But Darren, you know, here on the Reg.A, we're really about the Reg.A, and we've seen this trend, and we know that you're a big fan of the hybrid because you talked to us, you know, some shows back in regards to the future of Reg.As being these hybrid offerings. And now we see that the Reg.A industry, is moving, and there's a few of these that are going on right now, and goes to Ron's question about the ICO. We're seeing companies that are packaging in their registration statements and their initial A1 filings. Not only are they registering some of the common stock, Darren, but they're also offering ICO. So, how does the ICO differ from the security token, and what do you think about them placing it in and registering it and making part of their offering? And then the second part of that is, a lot of these companies are backing their ICOs with some of their common shares. Do you think that this is going to be a trend that's going to continue to go on, and do you think a lot more companies are going to kind of back their Reg.As with a little bit of a cryptocurrency flavor to it?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. It is an increasing trend. Now, I think the term ICO in the context of a Reg.A is a little bit of a misnomer. I personally think that ICO is synonymous with scam. The Wall Street Journal reported that last year, out of the $5.7 billion raised globally for ICOs, which is a tremendous number, I mean, these things exploded onto the scene almost out of nowhere, about $1 out of $6 invested, 1 out of 6 went into a pure scam. So I prefer the term security token offering, or STO, and so therefore Reg.A Plus becomes one of those guided pathways or avenues of capital raising for an STO issuer. So you have STO issuers using Reg.A Plus as the vehicle. You have STO issuers using Reg.D 506C, which is a private placement that can be marketed or solicited. And, from the Reg.A perspective, it's a fascinating moment in time, because we've seen a number of companies file offering circulars for security token offerings using Reg.A Plus, but none of these circulars have yet to be qualified by the SEC. And I think what's going to happen is the first batch of issuers that are filing Form 1As for token offerings, they are going to pay the price in terms of their pioneering vision, and they're going to end up being subject to unforeseen delays, not because the SEC will not qualify these offerings. I think they will absolutely begin to qualify these offerings, but because they're new, because they're referencing ICO or STO, they're talking about tokens, you can be sure that the SEC is going to take their time in reviewing these circulars. So whereas a typical Form 1A filing, as you guys know, will be turned around and qualified, 60 to 75 days from the day of filing, if you use a competent securities attorney, I think the first few batch of 1A filings for token offerings may take months. And so that's going to be an unfortunate aspect of, the first movers in this space. But my guess is the SEC is just simply curious. They want to understand more about the deal structure, the companies, the offerings, the mechanics. But inevitably, they will qualify these offerings, and maybe 6 months from now, my hope is that we'll be back to that quick 60 to 75-day turnaround for token offerings.
That would be something, Darren, because there is a real potential here for access to capital markets, not only through Reg.A offerings, but if you add a security token offering on top of your regular Reg.A, then now you've created equity both in your tokens and in your common stock, and both of those things can be listed. One can be listed on a decentralized exchange, like you said, or cryptocurrency exchange, and you can get your common stock listed on OTCQB, or you can go to NASDAQ, depending on what you have. But think about it: if you're able to sell $4 million worth of tokens, and then also maybe do a raise in Reg.A, you could qualify for the asset listing for NASDAQ with something like that. I think once people start to see the potential of this, and as you know, as more market makers and broker dealers start to understand this, you're going to see. I think that we're going to see more people packaging these things together, because if you have an ecosystem that you can plug in tokens, that you can plug in a wallet, and you can do the blockchain technology on top of everything else, and be able to use it for goods and services in exchange, and then you can trade those for other goods in exchange. I think this is a really big evolution of where we're coming into accessing capital markets.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. And look, I think Wall Street and the national securities exchanges are I think they're being very open-minded and have made a lot of promising comments. In fact, I was speaking at a conference in Las Vegas on Monday for NIRI, the National Institute of Investor Relations, the largest IR conference in the world. And NASDAQ's CEO, Adina Friedman, gave the opening keynote. She was absolutely brilliant. One of the comments she made was that blockchain has huge promise for broader capital markets. Those were her words. And prior to this, in April, in an interview on CNBC, she hinted that certainly NASDAQ would consider launching a crypto exchange. Again, her words. So I think this is just a matter of time before you see the first Reg.A token offering, not only qualified, but marketed, capital coming in, deal closed. Maybe one side of the deal, the shares are listed to NASDAQ or NYSE. The other side of the deal, the security tokens listed to a soon-to-be approved security token exchange such as T0 or CoinList or Templum or Open Finance. So there's a number of really interesting, innovative firms that are developing these secondary compliant exchanges for the listing and trading of security tokens. And it's going to be fascinating to see how this rolls out and whether they compete with the traditional exchanges, because I think they will. And the concept is that these exchanges will trade security tokens 24/7, every minute of the day, forever. None of this open at 9 a.m., close at 4:30. They'll also be able to attract international investors. There's just a lot of really interesting benefits that are at the moment theory, but in the next 6 to 12 months will probably be realized, and therefore competitive to NASDAQ and NYSE until they either buy these companies up or launch their own security token exchanges.
It's a global market, Darren. It's definitely a global market. It's going to be, it has to operate like that. Everybody's talking about globalization and how the world is becoming smaller and smaller. But I think that you do see that specifically with cryptocurrencies is that there is a globalization already accepted because you have it all over the world. And I think that it's easier to integrate something that's already in a different market. Almost every country has a coin exchange now where people are able to freely exchange some of their cryptocurrency, and now it's just time to catch up. I think it's going to be great.
I'm really excited. Look, it's like I said, it's a fascinating moment in time. We're getting referred to one new STO issuer a day, and these are a combination of companies. They're startups that want to create and issue security tokens and sell those tokens to investors using Reg.A Plus or Reg.D, as well as existing businesses, companies that have already raised $25, $50 million, and they're saying, hey, Darren, can you help us tokenize our equity, tokenize our debt, tokenize our cap table? We want to go out and raise $50 million or $100 million, and we want to sell security tokens. And they're buying into the value proposition of what a security token is, that it's a modern way to raise capital from investors, not totally dissimilar to the excitement around Reg.A. And as we know, there have been some real issues and continue to be issues with Reg.A. So, I'm not sitting here thinking that security tokens are going to be a guaranteed pathway to success. They're not going to have hurdles or roadblocks along the way. But it is absolutely another tool for entrepreneurs and issuers to consider as they're going out raising capital for their companies. And again, the beauty of Reg.A is that it allows retail investors, everyday Americans, people around the world to participate. And I think that's so important. It really aligns nicely with the entire philosophy of cryptocurrency, which is why I think we're seeing an increasing number of filings and companies announcing their plans or intent to do a Reg.A offering. They want everyday people, they want retail investors in their deal, and I think that's great.
Well, there you go. The future of Reg.A and cryptocurrency and security tokens offerings. So, Darren, as you know, the Reg.A Money Show with Ron Costa and me, Miguel Dotres. Guys, you've been listening to Darren Marble from CrowdFundX drop the heavy on you with everything you need to know and some of the things that you need to know in regards to security token offerings and what cryptocurrency could mean in the Reg.A industry. So, guys,